Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakahakwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video. And in this video, I'm going to start it off with a clip from the African Diaspora News Channel titled, Russia Sends Warplanes and Helicopters to Mali. And in this video, besides this clip, I've got a few other clips just to kind of go into, current events and prophecies, because after we see the information in these clips, we can clearly see that biblical prophecy continues to take place right before our very eyes. And all the major players for this upcoming third woe, World War III, are fitting in perfectly into their biblical roles. But before I play this first clip, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Mali receives Russian warplanes and helicopters, and a lot of Western countries are not happy about it, but Mali seems very happy with themselves. Let me show you this clip. We'll come back and discuss.
At the Modibo Keita International Airport in Bamako, Malian authorities receive a new delivery of several warplanes and helicopters from Russia, its new major military and political ally. 10 aircraft were counted on ground.
And that's a key point to remember. Russia being one of Mali's new major military and political allies.
And in the air, 8 planes and 2 helicopters during the ceremony. The desire to modernize and equip our army is not only linked to a security crisis. Of course, this crisis has shown the urgency of it. But above all, it responds to a fundamental need. Ensuring the security of its population is not a luxury, but a necessity.
Malians have been facing terrorist groups attacking civilians, hurting the people, and they've suffered for a long time. Now it's time for them to defend themselves and take back their country. So that's what they're trying to do. And the reason why they're receiving this warplanes and helicopters and support and assistance is because they want to fight the terrorist groups by themselves. As you all know, they just kicked out.
So with that clip, but now I'm going to go to my first couple of precepts. This is Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog. And Gog is the biblical name for Russia today. The land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. And that's the Most High putting these Russian Edomites back into that old confrontational Soviet Union spirit where they helped out a lot of these other smaller nations during the Cold War against the United States of America in the West. And Russia helped out a lot of these so-called African nations during the Cold War. And I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Russia's military arsenal, their tanks, fighter jets, helicopters, artillery pieces, S-300s, S-400s, etc., etc. And we can see that with Ukraine, the Most High has brought forth Gog or Russia with their military hardware into that country. But what this is ultimately talking about is the Russian military being gathered down into that Middle Eastern region, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon in Joel chapter 3. And Russia already has a presence in that Middle Eastern region. They've got troops in Syria, and in Syria, they opened up or refurbished a naval port that they used to have there. Verse 5, the main points I want to get to. Persia, which is the ancient name for Iran, which Russia is Iran's top ally. Ethiopia and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. And Ethiopia and Libya are countries in the land of Ham, or so-called Africa today. And you can look up and see that Russia has dealings with Ethiopia and Libya. And as we just saw in that clip, Russia is having dealings with another so-called African country, Mali. And then Russia has also been building up political, economic, and military ties with Sudan, another African country. Gomer, which is the name of Turkey and all his bands, and the house of Togarmah, and the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee. These are all the different allies of Russia, and be thou a guard unto them. And we can see that Russia is getting prepared and preparing itself and all its company that is assembled unto thee, and that mainly it is being a guard unto them, a protector unto these smaller countries. Who's their main adversary? Hey, the West and the United States of America. And again, it's something we clearly saw with this first clip dealing with Mali and Russia sending warplanes and helicopters to them. But now I'm going to go to my second clip, also on the African Diaspora News Channel, titled France Kicked Out of an African Country and Given 1 month to Leave. So not only are the prophecies dealing with Russia being a guard unto these other nations coming to their fulfillment, but also the prophecies of these nations outside of the Edomites turning against them and seeing that they're one of the major causes for the problems in their country. And again, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
The Burkina Faso government is kicking out the French troops. They actually gave them just 1 month to leave their country. The French troops that are in Burkina Faso right now are 400. That's a lot of foreign troops to have in a country. And you know, when they're telling them leave our country, it's a big statement. It is going to affect the relationship between France and Burkina Faso, but I doubt that Burkina Faso cares that much about what France thinks about their decision, because their relationship has not been good for a while now, especially after the military government took over, and they have not been happy with the way the French troops have handled the situation in Burkina Faso. The reason why the French troops were in Burkina Faso in the first place is to help the people and to fight the terrorist groups that is terrorizing the civilians and the people of Burkina Faso. But what the people are saying is that we're not seeing any change since you've come here. We haven't seen it. The same thing what Malians have been saying. And as you know, Mali actually kicked out the French troops, and Burkina Faso is now the second country to do that.
Protesters in Burkina Faso have been demanding France withdraw its troops from their country. They say the former colonial power has failed to protect them from armed groups.
And in a lot of instances, these different terrorist groups or proxy forces funded by these Western European nations and the U.S. for them to justify themselves into going into these so-called African countries. And as you can clearly see, these so-called African countries are sick of having these Western powers having a military presence in their country because they see that it's not helping them and actually hindering them. And a lot of these countries in Western Africa are filled with Israelites mixed in amongst these Hamites. Hey, they used to have the Mali Empire, which was an Israelite empire in Africa with the great kings like Mansa Musa. And there's a clear difference between the so-called Africans or Hamites and the Israelites that are dwelling in the land of Ham, even though they all, look like so-called dark-skinned or Negroid people. But that's just a quick side note.
If France was our partner, it was supposed to help us fight against terrorism, but since 2016, there has been no change. We think France doesn't deserve Burkina Faso's trust.
Now its military rulers have reportedly suspended the 2018 security accord with Paris.
So it is not looking good for France and, the relationship they have with African countries. It's like one by one, they're dropping France and they're saying, you have not been beneficial to us. If anything, we feel like there's even shady business going on behind the scenes. So you just leave our country. And Burkina Faso, as I said, became the second country to do that. And we are going to see what France is going to say or do after this, because clearly they were not happy with Mali kicking them out. And as you know, they tried to drag Mali in the UN Security Council, and they demanded for investigation and all that stuff. So we know they're going to retaliate. But as long as, a country, an African country, is no longer happy with having a foreign military presence in their country, they should be allowed to say no. They are a sovereign country and they should be allowed to make their decisions as they see fit. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what your thoughts are about Burkina Faso government.
And the history of these European Edomite Western countries in West Africa has been very bad, especially for the children of Israel that dwelt in the coast of Africa. It was European countries like France, Spain and Portugal and Britain that were a part of the transatlantic slave trade that stole a lot of those Israelites dwelling in these Western African countries to the Americas and other places to serve in a hardcore bondage in slavery. But let's go back to that first clip, because that second clip was talking about Burkina Faso wanting these French Edomites to get out of their country. And back in this first clip, it's talking about how Mali was doing the same thing. The Malians were going so hard that they wanted to drop French as their main language.
Out the French troops because they didn't believe they were helping them. Mali has officially become the first African country to cut ties with France. And they've also announced that they're abandoning French as their national language. The new military government of Mali announced its cessation of diplomatic ties with France on January 24, 2022. In addition, the nation will be abandoning French as its official language. French troops have been ordered to leave its territory within 72 hours. So now that the French troops are gone, they need to take over. They need to make sure that they fight these people that are dragging them down and hurting their own people. They have every right to protect their country and their sovereignty. So we cannot be mad at them for wanting to have those tools and instruments to protect themselves, as I said, from the groups that are hurting and
And where are they getting these weapons from? Russia, Gog being a guard unto these smaller countries.
deleting civilians. So as much as the Western world is not really happy with Mali getting this warplanes and helicopters from Russia, at the end of the day, as I said, Mali is a sovereign country and they can decide what's best for them. They're not
the Western world, these Western European, EU and NATO countries, and ultimately the United States of America being the last leg of the fourth beast in Daniel chapter 2. Those iron toes mixed with miry clay, the reincarnated Roman Empire, the last heathen kingdom to rule before the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. Under the true children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which again, you have a lot of the southern kingdom of the nation of Israel in these Western African countries. And besides Mali and Burkina Faso wanting the French to get out of their country, Algeria, another Western African country, I think they got France to just completely abandon their country. And then in Nigeria, which has a heavy Israelite presence, they're saying that we just want, for our modeling and advertisement, we just want Nigerian people. We don't need these so-called white European people representing us in our modeling and media and stuff like that.
Child that we need to scold and tell them what to do and what not to do. They saw that what's best for them right now is to fight for themselves and not depend on foreign troops like the French troops. So be it, we want the best for them and the people of Mali. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what you...
Now, with all this being the case and these nations turning against the nation of Esau, Edom, let's go to Obadiah chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 1. And this whole chapter is dedicated to you Edomites, or so-called white people. And the header reads, Edom will be humbled. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. That ambassador being the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High. And as we can clearly see right now, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS, going out onto the highways and byways, preaching this word, amongst not just our people, but these heathen nations, as well as putting up these video epistles online to where people globally can access it. Our people, and again, these other heathen nations, an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And these different nations, a lot of these heathen nations are starting to wake up to the fact that the major problem in a lot of their countries has been meddling by the Edomites, primarily from the West, especially the United States of America. You had Hugo Chavez, who was the president of Venezuela, and he was a Israelite, because those Venezuelans are of the northern kingdom of the nation of Israel. I believe they're the tribe of Asher. He said at one of those UN meetings, if you want to see what the major problem on the face of the earth is, just look at people with blonde hair and blue eyes wearing business suits. You can't make it any more plain than that. Verse 2, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And them being small among the heathen is twofold. On the one hand, these Edomites globally are actually the minority. They're the smallest nation in numbers amongst the other nations, and also their reputation is being made small. As we just saw, countries like Mali and Burkina Faso and many other countries, and a lot of Israelites being in these countries are despising these Edomites that are in their countries and saying, look, you're not helping us out. You're actually hindering us and making the situation worse here. Get out of our country. Let us have our own sovereignty. And in the midst of that, what do you have? Another nation of the Edomites, the Russians, coming in and being a guard unto these smaller nations, building them up militarily. But now I'm going to jump down to verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy, or your allies, have brought thee even to the border. And we mainly use this verse dealing with America's allies turning against her. and not just her heathen allies, but even her own Edomite European allies. But hey, this can also apply to these different nations that have had dealings with these different Edomite countries turning against them. And as we saw in those clips, Mali, which used to be a French colony, so in essence, what part of their confederacy, one of their allies, have brought thee to the border and turned against them. The men that are at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. Mali, Burkina Faso, for example, were at peace with the French and allowed them to have a military presence in their country to fight so-called terrorism, but they have deceived them and prevailed against them by what? Telling them to get out of their countries and then having Russia come in and help them out and be a guard or an ally unto them, confederating themselves unto them. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. So like I've been saying throughout the video, we're seeing biblical prophecy continue to take place right before our very eyes. Everybody is fitting in to their biblical roles for this third woe to come. World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon. But now I'm going to go to my last clip on Wyon's YouTube channel titled U.S. Warns Turkey to Stop Exports to Russia, Says It Will Empower Ukraine's War Effort. And this is another fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
The U.S. has warned Turkey to slow down exports to Russia, which could strengthen Moscow's war efforts in Ukraine. The U.S. says it would punish Turkish companies or banks who contravene the sanctions. U.S. Treasury Department's top sanctions official, Brian Nelson, says that a year-long rise in exports to Russia has left Russia particularly vulnerable to reputational and sanctions risks. He added that Turkey should take extra precaution to avoid transactions related to potential dual-use technology transfers that could be used by the Russian military-industrial complex.
Turkey, being a NATO country and supposed to be against Russia, is still continuing to help out Russia and really being an ally of Russia. Turkey playing both sides of the fence. But according to biblical prophecy, there's going to come a point to where Turkey is going to completely ally themselves with Russia. Back in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 6, Gomer, which is Turkey and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company, their allies, including Gomer or Turkey, that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Hey, we're seeing Turkey help out Russia by still doing business with them, regardless of threats from sanctions by the West, mainly the U.S., and Russia ultimately going to be a guard unto Turkey. And this, goes back to Obadiah 1, verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy are your allies, which Turkey is a supposed ally of the West and the U.S., have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. While these Western nations are going against Russia with sanctions, Turkey has still been doing business with Russia and has called for these sanctions not to be so heavily put on Russia. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. Turkey receiving a lot of support from these Western countries, ultimately, to take that support and turn against the West, mainly the U.S., and lay that wound under them by fully allying themselves with Russia to go against the West and the U.S.
Remember, Ankara has opposed the sanctions on Russia, but says that they will not affect Turkey in a negative light, and has urged the West to provide any evidence to the contrary. Now, Western nations have applied export controls and sanctions after.
That's it with that clip. That was the main point. But hey, biblical prophecy continues to take place at a rapid pace right before our very eyes. And Apostle Tahar has deemed 2023 to be the hopeful year that all prophecies are fulfilled. And it may very well be the year that all prophecies are fulfilled. The MOTB in Revelation 13 verses 16 to 18 coming to pass. World War III, which is going to go nuclear, coming to pass. And Yahushai Hamashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, making his second coming to save the elect of the nation of Israel, put an end to the rulership of these heathen nations, chiefly these Edomites, and begin establishing the kingdom of heaven. But if it's not 2023, with the rapid pace that prophecy is coming to pass, hey, we know that our salvation is nearer than when we believed. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwat were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we're almost out of the spinal wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the biblical Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.